My son, Ethan, turned me into a viral sensation overnight, but not the kind anyone would envy. At just 22 years old, fresh out of community college and buzzing with the energy of youth, he uploaded a TikTok video that transformed me into a walking punchline. The montage was cleverly edited, a series of clips he'd sneakily captured over weeks. In one, I was squinting at my ancient flip phone, poking at the buttons like they were booby-trapped, muttering under my breath about why the darn thing wouldn't connect to the interweb. Another showed me at the family dinner table, proudly announcing that I'd finally figured out how to use Wi-Fi to check the weather, only to have everyone burst into laughter at my mangled pronunciation of Wi-Fi. My voice in the video was thick with that earnest confusion only a 58-year-old woman who'd spent her life more in diners than in front of screens could muster. The caption overlaid in bold, flashy text read, "Living with the ridiculous old lady who raised me." He slapped on the hashtag #momfail, followed by a barrage of laughing emojis that seemed to multiply like rabbits. By the time I woke up the next morning, brewing my usual pot of black coffee in our cramped kitchen, the video had already racked up 2 million views. Ethan was glued to his phone, refreshing the screen every few seconds, his face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Mom, check this out. We're blowing up," he exclaimed, shoving the device under my nose. I glanced at it briefly, seeing the numbers climb, but I didn't react. By the end of that first week, it hit 10 million views. The comments section was a whirlwind. "Is this lady for real? She's hilarious. Someone get her a tech intervention, lol. #momfail of the century." Ethan, sensing the gold mine, didn't stop there. He leaned into the virality, posting follow-up videos almost daily. One featured me attempting to make avocado toast but ending up with a charred mess because I forgot to set the toaster right. Another captured me trying to use modern slang, calling something lit but pronouncing it like light, which sent his audience into hysterics. Each new clip brought more engagement, likes pouring in by the thousands, shares spreading like wildfire, and even sponsorship offers rolling in. Brands eager to capitalize on the trend sent him freebies, cases of energy drinks to fuel his content creation, high-end gaming headsets for his late-night streams, and an all-expenses-paid trip to a popular music festival where he could vibe with the crowd. My son, my only child whom I'd poured every ounce of my being into raising, had unwittingly, or perhaps wittingly, turned the woman who birthed him into his golden ticket to internet fame and fortune. I chose to stay silent through it all. What could I say? I didn't even have a TikTok account. The app's interface looked like a foreign language to me, all swipes and filters and trends that changed faster than the weather. I didn't know how to create one, and truthfully, I had no desire to learn. Ethan had always been this way, even as a little boy, craving attention like it was oxygen. From the moment he could walk, he needed an audience for every scribbled drawing on the fridge, every wobbly soccer goal in the backyard park. I'd raised him single-handedly after his father walked out when Ethan was just 6, leaving me with a stack of bills and a heart full of determination. I worked double shifts at the local diner, flipping burgers and pouring coffee until my feet ached and my back screamed for mercy, all to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Every spare dollar I earned went straight to him: soccer camps to nurture his athletic dreams, art supplies for his creative phases, and eventually, his first laptop when he begged for one to explore the world online. I sacrificed my own youth to give him the opportunities one never had growing up in a small town with nothing but dreams deferred. And now, here he was, repaying me by turning those very sacrifices into a global joke. I watched him from the kitchen doorway one evening as he set up his phone on a tripod, filming yet another skit. His girlfriend, Mia, a sharp, ambitious 21-year-old with a sleek ponytail and an influencer vibe of her own, egged him on with giggles. "Oh, do the one where she tries to use Siri." "That's gold," she said, tossing her hair dramatically. I stirred my coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the mug, and said absolutely nothing. Let the world laugh at the ridiculous old lady. I'd survived abandonment, financial hardships, and endless lonely nights. A few viral videos? They were nothing compared to that. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind where the sky is gray and the air hangs heavy with unspoken regrets. I was midway through my shift at the diner, wiping down sticky tables with an apron already stained from a morning rush of ketchup spills and coffee drips, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was the bank manager from First National, her voice laced with a professional nervousness that immediately set my nerves on edge. "Mrs. Carter, we've detected an irregularity with your primary savings account. It appears someone attempted a large withdrawal using a forged signature. We've halted the transaction for security reasons, but we need you to come in right away to verify." My heart plummeted like a stone into a deep well. I didn't need her to elaborate, I knew instinctively it was Ethan. The boy who'd once struggled to forge a simple note to skip gym class in high school had apparently graduated to something far more sinister. That savings account held $42,000, meticulously scraped together over 2 decades of scrimping and saving. It was my safety net, my modest retirement fund, the buffer against whatever curveballs life might throw next. Everything was still in my name, but I'd foolishly granted him joint access when he turned 18, thinking it would instill a sense of responsibility, teach him about finances. How naive I'd been. I called in sick for the rest of my shift, a rare occurrence, and drove straight to the bank, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The manager, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, ushered me into a private office and laid out the evidence on the desk, photocopies of the withdrawal forms, my name scrawled in Ethan's unmistakable sloppy handwriting, nothing at all like my precise, looping cursive. He attempted to transfer the entire sum to a new account opened in his name alone, she explained gently, her eyes full of sympathy. Our system flagged it immediately because the signature was an obvious mismatch. I nodded, my throat constricted with a mix of rage and sorrow. "Close it all down," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Every single account he has access to, the checking, the savings, even the small trust fund I set up for him years ago. Lock him out completely." She paused, her pen hovering over the forms. "Mrs. Carter, are you absolutely sure? This is a significant step, and it could, I'm sure," I interrupted, firmer than I'd felt in months. I signed the necessary papers with a hand that barely trembled, then walked back to my car in a daze. Only then, alone in the parking lot with the engine idling, did the tears come. Not for the money I'd nearly lost, but for the boy I'd raised, the one who'd curled up on my lap during thunderstorms, promising in his childish lisp that one day he'd buy me a big house with a garden. The one who'd just betrayed me in the most calculated way imaginable. The internet, as they say, moves at the speed of light, and Ethan's world crumbled just as quickly as it had risen. By the very next morning, all his financial accesses were frozen solid. I heard later that his debit card was declined at a trendy coffee shop where he was trying to impress Mia with a fancy latte. She posted a cryptic TikTok that afternoon about major trust issues in relationships, complete with sad music and a filter that made her eyes look teary. The story leaked somehow, perhaps a loose-lipped teller at the bank, or maybe Ethan himself confided in the wrong friend, and the gossip mills on X, formerly Twitter, were the first to grind it into viral fodder. A thread started by an anonymous account exploded, breaking, TikTok sensation Ethan Carter busted for forging his mom's signature to swipe her life savings. Bank accounts frozen. Talk about #karma hitting hard. The comments were a savage torrent. "This is exactly why you don't bite the hand that feeds you," literally. "That poor mom deserves way better than this ungrateful punk." From viral star to viral thief overnight. Poetic justice. Ethan's once adoring followers turned on him like a pack of wolves. His comment sections, previously awash in heart emojis and fan art, now overflowed with vitriol. "Thief. You're disgusting, unfollowed. How could you do that to your own mother?" The brands that had courted him dropped him faster than a hot potato, emails retracting offers flooded his inbox, and the music festival organizers publicly announced they'd revoked his VIP invite, citing moral concerns. Mia, ever the opportunist, distanced herself swiftly, her joint posts with him vanished, and her profile picture updated to a solo shot of her lounging in a sunny new city, caption reading "New beginnings, 2 hearts." The very cameras and platforms that had catapulted him to stardom now documented his spectacular fall from grace. A grainy paparazzi video surfaced online, showing Ethan outside a nightclub, arguing heatedly with a bouncer, his face flushed crimson and his voice cracking with desperation. Do you even know who I am? He shouted, gesturing wildly. The internet's collective response was merciless. Yeah, we do, the entitled kid who screwed over his own mom for clout. Through the chaos, I remained steadfastly out of the spotlight. I didn't create an account to clap back, didn't leave a single comment defending myself, and politely declined when local news outlets called for interviews, their voices dripping with faux sympathy. Instead, I stuck to my routine, clocking in at the diner, paying my modest bills on time, and tending to the small backyard garden where I'd recently planted a bed of vibrant marigolds. Their golden petals brought a touch of color to my otherwise gray days. The world didn't need to hear my side of the story, it was already unraveling the truth on its own, thread by viral thread. It was 5 long months later, as autumn leaves began to carpet the ground, when I heard the familiar creak of the front gate. I was out in the garden, pruning those marigolds with a pair of rusty shears, the sun warming my back, when I looked up. There stood Ethan, a shadow of his former self, thinner, with hollow cheeks and longer hair that hung unkempt over his forehead, his eyes rimmed with the kind of exhaustion that comes from more than just lack of sleep. In his hands, he clutched a haphazard bouquet of wildflowers, plucked from who knows where, their roots still clumped with fresh dirt. No smartphone in sight, no camera rig, no cocky smirk. Just him, looking small and vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. "Mom," he said, his voice barely rising above a whisper, cracking on the single word. Can we talk?" I set down the shears carefully on the garden bench and nodded once, gesturing to the porch steps. We sat there in the fading light, on the same weathered wooden porch where he'd spent countless afternoons as a boy, building elaborate Lego castles while I read him bedtime stories long past his actual bedtime. He didn't meet my eyes at first, instead fixating on the wildflowers in his lap, twisting their stems nervously between his fingers. "I messed up, Mom," he finally said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Big time. I don't know what I thought. That the money was just sitting there, not being used, and you'd never notice. That I could borrow it and pay you back tenfold once I hit it big with the videos. But I was so wrong. About everything. The fame, the followers, it all blinded me." I sat quietly, letting the silence stretch between us. I'd learned over the years that sometimes, saying nothing forces the truth to surface. He continued, his voice gaining a raw edge. "I lost it all so fast. The sponsorships dried up, the invites vanished, and Mia, she bailed the second things got real. But the worst part, by far, was realizing I'd lost you. I didn't understand before how much you've done for me, all those years of working yourself to the bone just so I could have a shot. I saw the posts online, the ones defending you, calling you a hero for putting up with me. And they're right. I was too wrapped up in my own ego, too stupid to see what was right in front of me." He extended the wildflowers toward me, his hands trembling visibly. "I understand now, Mom. Truly. I'm so sorry." I accepted the bouquet, the petals soft and fragile against my rough, callous fingers, hands worn from years of scrubbing dishes and wiping counters. I studied my son then, really looked at him, the boy I'd carried through fevers and heartbreaks, the teenager I'd guided through awkward phases, the young man who'd inflicted the deepest wound I'd ever known. But in his eyes, amidst the regret, I glimpsed something new, not the insatiable hunger for attention that had driven him astray, but a flicker of the innocent child he'd once been, the one who believed in promises and second chances. "I believe you," I replied softly, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I truly meant it. The words hung in the air, a fragile bridge over the chasm that had opened between us. We didn't magically fix everything in that single conversation. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day, it's a painstaking process, like reconstructing a house brick by brick after a devastating storm. But Ethan took the first steps. He asked to move back home, and I agreed, watching as he unpacked his few belongings into his old bedroom, where dusty soccer trophies still lined the shelves like relics from a happier time. He found a job at the local hardware store, starting at the bottom, sweeping sawdust-covered floors, stocking shelves with tools and paint cans, helping customers with quiet humility. No more cameras capturing his every move, no filters to enhance his image, just honest, unglamorous work that left him tired but grounded at the end of each day. He even started seeing a therapist, paying for the sessions out of his own modest paycheck, delving into the why behind his actions, the voids he'd tried to fill with superficial fame. Sometimes, in the evenings, I'd catch him glancing my way as we shared a simple meal, and he'd offer a small, genuine smile, not the performative grin he'd flashed for likes and views, but one born from real connection. The internet, ever fickle, had long since moved on to newer sensations, fresher scandals, leaving our story as just another faded hashtag in the digital ether. But in our little house, something precious began to take root, not the hollow allure of fame or the cold comfort of money, but a quiet, enduring understanding. I'd forever be known to some as the ridiculous old lady who raised him, the unwitting star of his viral mockery. And he'd always be my son, flawed and human, but now striving to be better, to honor the bond we'd nearly lost. One quiet evening, as we sat over a pot of spaghetti, the only dish he knew how to cook without burning the kitchen down, he set down his fork and looked me straight in the eyes. "I'm going to make this right, Mom," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "Not for the world to see, not for redemption points online. Just for you. For us." I reached across the table, squeezing his hand gently, my heart swelling with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "You already are, son," I whispered. "You already are." And in that moment, amid the clink of forks and the soft hum of the refrigerator, I knew we'd found our way back, not to perfection, but to something real, something lasting. The viral storm had passed, leaving behind a clearer sky.